Recording.
Welcome everybody to another installment in the Startup Stay Engaged series that we're doing here as part of Activate New Mexico, which is a program of C&M Ingenuity. And at C&M Ingenuity, we do a lot of good stuff, helping grow the talent of the future, and my side of the house really growing the startups of the future. And on the call here, we are in a meeting setting, so it's a little more personable than a webinar setting, but on the call are members of the C&M family, the college, C&M Ingenuity, which is the nonprofit enterprise arm of the college, where I kind of sit and Dan sits. But we also have entrepreneurs, some of whom I know and some of whom are new faces to me. But in our Activate New Mexico program, you see a lot of our entrepreneurs who are currently going through the pressure cooker of a 10-week, very immersive lean startup mentorship-based program that seeks to develop their businesses lickety-split compared to what they would do on their own. And we're in the middle of that program, so they're kind of gleaning all the learnings that they can. And we also have people who represent cities, represent other programs, and I thank you all for coming as well. Mostly the Albuquerque area, but some folks around New Mexico. And we welcome everybody to the table, as it were. I'm super excited about this session, and I'll tell you why. It's because with us we have Dale Dekker, and you can read his bio. That's the second link that Dan put in the chat. If you want to click that and look at that. But Dale has been very active in the entrepreneurial community, but even above that, I would say the economic development community in New Mexico, mostly through the role he plays as the founder, president of Dekker, Perich, Sabatini. And he is an architect at heart, at mind, and the firm is an architecture and planning firm that does projects that are socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. Dale's contributions are especially awesome in the high-tech, one-of-a-kind research facilities that we have, lots of which were done for Sandy National Labs, school designs, and large-scale master planning projects, such as the UNM Master Plan Update. So if you're wanting to interact with a big thinker, somebody who sees literally kind of the 30,000 foot view looking down on entire cities and entire regions, that's who you have here. And that architectural metaphor extends to our economic development community and our entrepreneurial community, where I personally found Dale inspiring and is a person in my life who helps me stay engaged, no pun intended with the name of our series, to what's the trend, what's the opportunity in the midst of perceived chaos, etc. So we're going to get a sense for that. We'll do about a 20-25 minute fireside chat, just Dale and I talking. Then we're going to do something really fun. Well, you're going to get to know a couple other people on this call. We're going to put you in groups of 3 for a really quick but really fun Zoom breakout session where you'll be able to kind of reflect on the fireside chat that you just listened to, and then be with a couple other people and hear their reflection. Then we're going to come back from that, have a few people share back in the chat message kind of what their group's reflection was, or an aha or an insight they gleaned, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So that's going to be a jam-packed next 51 minutes if I'm looking at the time. And again, thank you all for coming. So like I said, let's begin. Dale, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to take off my distracting background here and just be normal TJ now as we chat. So wonderful to have you. Can you just start by unpacking that article, give us the TLDR around what the big message is and why that article, why you produced that article for this time?
Well, I think we're living in unprecedented times, obviously, but in New Mexico, we're definitely living in unique times where we've seen a crash of oil prices. We all know that tourism and hospitality is going to be greatly impacted, which is going to impact our gross receipts tax dollars. Business has been shut down. Our state's budget is upside down $2 billion. There's just a lot of issues coming at us all at once. And I think what prompted me to write the article, and I think we've all been talking about this, but our budget in our state has been addicted to 2 or 3 forms of revenue for too long, and we have not been able to build a very robust private sector. And we have not really been able to take advantage of how we could diversify our economy. But I would like to compliment the people on this call, because we were reflecting earlier that in 2012, the University of New Mexico and Lisa Kudla and Bob Frank at the time took a trip to Florida and saw their innovation center, which really was talking about building a innovation ecosystem. And I think a lot of the people on this call are a result of those efforts that were done 8 years ago. So we need to always keep that perspective as we move forward, knowing that what we do today can have dramatic impacts in the future. And so, that's what really prompted the article. Is now is the time. With tremendous disruption like we've had, there comes both challenges and opportunities. And I like to look at it as on the opportunity side. And I think everybody on this call, as much as we might have been inconvenienced or as much as it's impacting our daily lives, there will be a next normal. And that next normal is what we need to be focused on. I think that we see our public entities really focused on the here and now, and on how we can restart our business. But this group of people, we need to be thinking about the now and next, because we can provide that vision that will drive our economy into the future. A couple other things, and again, you kind of just look at the chatter that's out there on the internet and what people are beginning to see. I think we as a country exposed ourselves to some tremendous vulnerabilities around critical infrastructure, medical equipment, PPE, pharmaceuticals, especially when you consider that 90% of all of our antibacterial drugs are manufactured in China. The other things that go into drugs are all manufactured offshore. These are all areas where I think our country is going to have to reassess, never to be put in that position again. And it will drive business, both foreign and domestic, back to the United States. The interruption to supply chain was huge. In a lot of companies that depend on parts that are made 4,000 or 5,000 miles away had to shut down because that supply chain was interrupted. And I think there's also going to be a huge opportunity for reshoring in the United States. And I think New Mexico has a unique value proposition because of our location, our lack of density. I think we'll see an opportunity for people to move out of the higher density cities where the spread of COVID and viruses can happen at a much more rapid pace. New Mexico is benefiting greatly, I think, from reading the tea leaves, shutting down early, and that's it kept our numbers very, very low. But now we need to figure out how to get back open for business and get commerce going again. So those are things. I see it as, what is that next normal looking like? And for us, I think it's a whole new world out there, because for the entrepreneurs and the innovators on this call, it's going to be about being nimble and quick and being able to pivot fast, because we don't know, we could have this conversation in a month and who knows what we'll be talking about in a month from now.
Right.
But the one thing that won't change, and everybody on this call is going to have a whole different set of ideas and insights into products, services, and what that next world might look like. And it's going to be the people here that are going to craft what that next normal looks like and what our next economy looks like for the state of New Mexico. So that's kind of my elevator pitch right there. If we're going up a 90-story building, but it's really resetting our economy, diversifying our economy, being nimble and quick, and it's going to be with companies that have unique ideas about how to deal with what tomorrow's world will look like.
That's awesome. I just want to plus one something you said right at the outset there that I personally embody. As a longtime Burqueño, I was born in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but I moved here when I was 3. And I spent 3 years in Boulder in 2007, 2010. But when I came back, I've been doing business in lots of other places, traveling a lot. And my heart was tugging at me, what can I do for New Mexico? And I went to I think where I was really got sparked, I met Eric Renz Whitmore. Don't see him on the call, but he's been an Uber connector for our entrepreneurial community for years, and met him at a Flying Star. And he got me involved in what became 1 Million Cups, and I went to an ABQID demo day. This was 3 years before I joined as the director of ABQID. And we really do have an infrastructure, a movement. I wouldn't call having arrived, but that is pretty far along compared to other places, that represents a real difference now in our ability to grasp, to embrace this challenge and do something with it than in times past when I would say, Dale, and not to undermine anything, but there's always been this message of now's the time to embrace this challenge as opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But I really do feel like we have some teeth that we can grab into, and some supports that can support the entrepreneurs who embrace that next normal. So I just wanted to give ecosystem kudos, I guess. And I'm in it to win. I'm not somewhere else because I saw it happening here and I wanted to be a part of it. And there's many people like that. There's a lot of specific industries you mentioned in the article that you're pretty excited about. I'm wondering if we could, as the trend spotter self, and I'm not going to hold you to anything or do a follow-up post 5 months from now and say if Dale Dekker got it right or wrong, but just get your thoughts on, pick one of these. You already mentioned infrastructure, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, but in the article you also mentioned artificial intelligence, you mentioned aerospace, and you mentioned robotics.
Yep.
Dive into a couple of those and tell me, and tell us, here's the opportunity you see in light of COVID, and even larger than COVID, what was already going to be a trend that we should all be aware of.
Well, I think this trend gets back to reshoring critical infrastructure manufacturing to the United States. And the pitch that, again, I look at this as a New Mexico-centric kind of thing, that those businesses that do come here and our manufacturers are not going to be the manufacturing plants of old. They're going to be implementing Industry 4.0, which is the Internet of Things, 5G, big data, analytics, robotics, artificial intelligence. And those factories will be working 24/7, 365. That's one of our unique advantages of where we live. And also, I think we're finding out because of where we're located, that's a big advantage. Solero, Optipulse, some of the companies that are dealing with space, I think are building that ecosystem of people that are here. The Air Force Research Lab, and the whole communications reorienting from Earth to space will be, be a place that New Mexico can play greatly in, as well as how we utilize our asset at Spaceport America to do horizontal launches, just not vertical launches, to get these ubiquitous small satellites into space. But what I think is really exciting about this is that everybody on this call has the equal opportunity now to think and create And it's not going to be the big companies that necessarily pull us out of this. It's going to be the innovators that can pivot and move quickly. And we've all seen how big organizations work. They can't pivot and move. They get stuck. Now, it was pretty amazing what happened with Ford and GM and some of the automakers that did pivot and started to make needed products and services or products during this pandemic. But, I think we'll probably find out that Sandia National Labs and their advanced manufacturing group might have had a lot of play in that space. So there's assets that we have here in New Mexico around advanced manufacturing in the labs that could greatly benefit Industry 4.0. I see Kyle and Erica and others from C&M on the call. And that's going to require a whole new workforce. And that's, again, a huge opportunity for us to pivot, because that's what C&M has done for years and years, is they've been able to pivot and move in directions to support industry needs. So that's a strong marketing tool for us to use as a state in creating our own narrative about who we are as a people, where we sit in the world, and the capabilities that we have, I think would be very appealing to both foreign and domestic companies looking to come back to the United States for a lot of good reasons. And I don't think we're going to want to put ourselves as a country in the same position where the safety, health, welfare, and security of our country is dependent solely upon foreign countries that supply critical infrastructure. So keep your ears open for that. I'm anticipating that there'll probably be some very similar program to what they did at the federal level through investment tax credits, like we did around solar, because there will be a gap in the beginning, but as companies move here, just like in solar, 15 years ago, that 30% tax credit, you had to have that to justify making the investment in solar. But as technology and the cost of solar panels has decreased, it's almost cheaper now to put solar on your rooftop than to buy it from P&M. And it's definitely, if you look at where things are headed, the next big discussion we'll get out of this pandemic will be about climate change, will be about the impact that the positive impact that this pandemic had on CO2 emissions. And we'll start to have a whole new reset because we were forced to have discussion and a global impact around climate change and other things. So, those are all great opportunities for everybody on this call.
One more follow-up there is I'm looking at who's here, especially on the entrepreneur side. Hi, Mathis, like the beard.
Yeah.
And lots of software companies. I think about RS-21, and you're a big supporter of RS-21 from the very outset, frankly, and helping connect the dots with Charles there. And it's been a great company and a great story for our ecosystem thus far. No startup has ever arrived, but just comment, because we do have lots of software builders in the ecosystem, how they can be thinking specifically around what you just talked about, infrastructure, these very physical trends, but where do you see software and artificial intelligence and data type of companies playing a role in that?
Well, it's going to be huge. I mean, I think there's this whole new appreciation for data and analytics. I think, after we kind of get to a certain point, there's going to be a rear view mirror look at this whole pandemic, and a whole new sets of algorithms will be developed that will be probably more powerful, quite frankly, than a vaccine in identifying these things in the future and stopping them. It'll be through data, and it'll be through understanding how pandemics move and work through global systems. And that's going to be big data, GIS linked kind of new data sets. And RS-21 is a great example of somebody that's in an unusual group of programmers, coders, mathematicians, visual artists that know how to create unbelievable, robust dynamic visualizations to impart information. And so, data analytics is going to be huge. But I wrote something down here because I was thinking that where we're at in the world from an innovation point of view is there's a lot of fear out there. Everything's unknown, right? We don't know exactly when things are going to be over. We don't know. We all know what the unknowns are. It's just kind of the unknown unknowns, right? But so anybody who can invent, create a product or a technology that can help create certainty out of uncertainty, I think we'll have a winner. And that's, Eric Sorbert, Perspectives. Talk about a little local company that's pivoted on their heels, going from security and facial recognition to now incorporating a thermal imaging camera that can take the temperature of somebody who's walking into your lobby. It's those kinds of swift pivots, and that's where we're at. It's not that Eric's camera is going to catch everybody who might have COVID-19, but one of the key indicators is a temperature. So I'm not necessarily as worried about the people that work for me. I'm also worried about the guy who's delivering plans and sets that's working paycheck to paycheck, who might go to work because he doesn't feel very good that day, but he doesn't have any sick leave. He's got to go to work. So I think there's those kinds of technologies that are going to be out there that you guys are going to invent on this call that's going to, and again, anything that we can put and use technology to help create certainty and remove the fear, I think that's kind of ruminating through society right now is going to be a valuable product or service.
That's fantastic. What I'm going to do, we could talk for another 30 minutes, but we're going to do a little experiment we've been doing on these Stay Engaged series, and that has to do with engagement, because we're all zoomed out at this point, I'm sure, especially on a Friday. What we're going to do, if you listen carefully, is we're going to use Zoom breakout rooms to go into groups of 3. So I'm actually going to be in a breakout. Dale's going to be in a breakout. Hopefully you get Dale and not me. But when you get into, you'll see the interface say join breakout room. You just click on that, or it will automatically put you in the breakout room. And you'll land in essentially a smaller meeting within this meeting. And what I want you to do is this. Spend 90 seconds, get your iPhone out, your Android device, get the timer out, and one at a time, pick who goes first, and just spend 90 seconds, because verbalization, articulation of what you've heard is a powerful facet of education, of applicability. Reflect on what Dale's been talking about, and try to get to a point where you say, I think it applies to me in this way. I think it applies to my business in this way, or here's the opportunity I see for my business. Now you only have 90 seconds, so it's kind of high level, quick reactions, and then we're going to pull you all back in about 5 minutes. Please make sure everybody has at least 90 seconds to chat, okay? So again, groups of 3, once you land in your Zoom breakout, pick who goes first, and that person, say your name, company you're working on, whatever. Just spend 90 seconds reflecting on what you've heard in this session thus far and how it applies to what you're working on, your business, your initiatives. And then pass to the next person, and we'll bring it back. And at that point, we'll open it up for some Q&A. All right, let's go meet a couple people as best we can using digital tools. Dan's gonna send us on our merry little way, and we'll pull you back in about 5 minutes. If you get lost, Dan is here in the main meeting to help. There'll be like a help me I'm lost kind of button in the bottom of your interface, but otherwise you'll be able to unmute in your breakout rooms and have a quick 90-second reflection one by one. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so just a couple things from an admin standpoint, going to be breaking you out into 10 rooms, which will be about 2 to 3 people per room. If you have any troubles, there's a little button, like TJ said, that you can lead back. Unfortunately, I can't. I have to assign everybody, so everyone will be assigned. So hopefully, if you get someone who's not participating, no worries. Hopefully, you get one person that's participating. If any reason you need to come back to the main thread, just come back to the main thread. Thank you.
I know we probably interrupted like 99/100% of you because you just got started. What you can do is go to chat, go to the bottom where it says to, and not to everyone, but if you struck a chord with somebody, go find them and say, hey, love to get a virtual copy with you. Love to pick your brain a little bit more, learn more about that thing you're doing. And let's use the tools we got to make the connections we need. For now, again, because we have so many on the call, I thought probably not easiest or very fluid to, not very fluid to try to unlock people's mute buttons and stuff like that. But can I get 2 or 3 of you or any number of you to put into to everyone one of the insights you gained from listening to the 2 other people on your call? For example, I'll model this. Chap Grubb was with me. He's one of our Activate NM companies with Rerouted Co-op. And at first he was looking, they sell used gear online. He was looking to get used gear, or had been getting used gear at festivals, very face-to-face things. And during COVID, he's pivoted really hard to mom and pop gear shops around the country, especially in the Mountain West, who are really low on business. And it's a timely time to try to partner with them to get their used gear on his platform. So that's how he's embracing that opportunity. So go ahead and type up an insight you got from, again, not your own company, but try to reflect back something you heard from one of the other 1 or 2 people on your call. Insight, aha moment, idea they had, reflection, etc. Erica says, for some, this can be a time for some to focus on personal learning and how we might upskill and reinvent ourselves. Kara, really nice partner comment to that. Online programs will remain. Yeah, that's a really huge, in the VC community, as I'm fund manager of ABQID Fund, ed tech has never been sexy to investors, except it now very much is, which is awesome as a former educator. David King says ditto with Erica. Upskilling is awesome. And yeah, instead of going and watching the news, go to Udemy, go to Ingenuity, go to some of these places and say, where can I build myself? It's great. Andrea says, Rick and I had a good talk about the future of tech training. Andrea runs a deep dive coding boot camps, so we really appreciate her work. Rick said, Andrea talked about how deep dive coding will need to go into other tech areas. Oh, IoT going well. T and that. I can't decode that, but you guys can read it. IoT, there you go. Internet of Things. Good. Well, keep it coming. But what I would like to what I would like to transition to now in the 20 minutes that remain is some Q&A. So again, using the chat feature, I'm just going to be disc jockey. I'm going to step back and just facilitate and kind of read the questions to Dale. What questions do you have for Dale? He has a really great take on this. He has been in this ecosystem, seen the transformations, been up many of the transformations, learned a lot of lessons, and like I said at the outset, just has a really keen sense about these things, and really believes in New Mexico's potential. So yeah, I'm going to go back up and find Chap's question to start things off, Dale, and then I'm going to disc jockey the chat here. All right, I'm finding it. It was a good question, I recall. You're talking about an economic return to the U.S. Would you say the same thing to happen on a more local level too? Is it likely? Are we going to be on a motorboat versus a cruise ship here? What do you see for New Mexico specifically?
Speedboat. Yeah, I think there's a great opportunity to create our narrative around attracting next generation manufacturing industry 4.0 to our state. That's kind of at the macro level, and it needs to be marketed and put forth. But I also think once we're able to get those 4.0 companies here, once we get the CNM world and UNS and New Mexico techs and states aligned with that new industry 4.0, everybody on this call is going to have a whole new set of enablers who can help them take their ideas and products to market. And that's part of the ecosystem that we need. And it's not just the people with the ideas, it's the people who can put the ideas and make them work, right? Who are the engineers that can design the interfaces and the widgets and the sensors that are going to be ubiquitous in our lives, and put them into products and converge multiple technologies into unique and beneficial products that we will all need, particularly around healthcare, particularly around real-time knowledge of could be pandemics, could be any number of things, and also how we do this and maintain all of our civil liberties and our privacy in such a way that we're willing to engage in these new systems without feeling that we're going to be violated. So, you know, that's kind of the grand challenge, right? For all of us is, if we just give over our data freely to anybody all the time, we could solve a lot of problems, but you might also be exposing yourself and your data to, you know, not very good characters who want to take advantage of you. So I just, that's a rambling answer to a pretty specific question, but I think that's where being nimble, quick, being able to pivot, being able to look at long-term, where the world's headed, but applying your creative skills is going to make a difference for our state.
Startup, be nimble. Startup, be quick. Startup, jump over the COVID stick.
Right. There you go.
Okay, that's my dad joke of the day, and I apologize for it. I'm going to go to Rick's question here. It's a nice balancer, and then I'll go back to Paula's excellent question, which kind of relates to another one too from Erica. So Rick's question is, how much do you think we should be focused on COVID-specific efforts versus, you know, thinking beyond the pandemic? Like, what is the calculus you would advise a first-time entrepreneur or even second-time entrepreneur right now? How much to be COVID responsive versus thinking not so locally about this particular circumstance?
Well, I think anything that you create and invent today that is even COVID-19 specific is going to have future applications, just because of the way the world is, and climate change and some of the other dynamic things that are happening in our world. But I'd also suggest that we start to look at how do we make our world in the next normal convenient? And how do we create and use technology or use inventions or use whatever to remove the fear that is going to be the hangover from COVID-19? I think, terrorism after 9/11 was a pretty specific target. It became a national passion. Everybody could kind of point their guns in the same direction. But this is just impacted everybody and every system. And think about air travel. Think about the impact that we need to get our air travel back, particularly for our state, so that we can have tourists and conventioneers coming to New Mexico. How do we make it so that it's almost like going through security now? Now it's not a problem. We're all used to it. And we all know that if we get on that airplane, there's 99.9% chance we're not sitting next to somebody who's got a bomb in their pocket. So we're going to have to invent those systems. We're going to have to converge different technologies to create those systems, and whole new systems that we can't even think about. But we do know one thing's going to happen. These little babies are going to be here to stay. They're only going to get more ubiquitous, and with 5G, it's only going to change more and more of the world around us.
It's fantastic. Going to shifting gears a little bit to the talent side of this whole equation. We had a couple of questions and a great audience to provide your insights to. I'll read both of them. What kind of talent does New Mexico have, and what do we need to attract to address this pivot? And then the second question, what are the top job opportunities for upskilling, reskilling New Mexicans? And again, you're talking to the folks who design Ingenuity's boot camps and programs and folks from UNM and things like that. So what would you say?
Well, I don't know if I'm necessarily an expert in that area. I know Erica and some of my friends at CNM and the University of New Mexico are probably running this through their brains right now as to what our world and what the training needs of the next normal will be. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, and I'm going to send out a follow-up email to TJ that I would hope he could share with everybody on the call. And I found 6 articles that really frame up some of the challenges long-term and a lot of the opportunities that I've talked about. And one of those is that in our education system in the United States is not turning out sufficient numbers of engineers and scientists to really support a real robust reshoring economy back to the United States, okay? And it really starts with a failure of our pre-K through 12 system to deal with STEM and to keep up with the rest of the world with our public education system. So I think we're going to see a renewed emphasis on public education, science, engineering, math, in order to catch up there. And particularly for New Mexico, I think this is a huge opportunity because not only will companies be looking to reshore to the United States, I think Mexico is going to benefit greatly from nearshoring companies. And they're going to need the same number of engineers and technologists to survive. And wouldn't it be great if Tech, State, and UNM became to Mexico what Stanford, MIT, and Harvard was to China in developing engineers and human capital? What we could then become really is the place where they come to get their master's degrees, their PhDs. And it's that interpersonal relationships that when you do those things that really drives strategic partnerships across national and international boundaries. And we could play a big part as New Mexico in solving some of our immigration problems by helping Mexico develop a more robust middle class in a better economy. And so they're poised as well. I've often thought that we as a state ought to get with Juarez and Chihuahua and create a binational economic development strategy to really look at and it's back to the future, right? It's the Camino Real on steroids and in technology. And so, you look at just the state of Chihuahua, I think their overall population is like 2.5, 3 times the state of New Mexico. So there's a lot of human capital that could be deployed there for Industry 4.0 and could be of great benefit to our state and our higher education system and really challenge our public education system
Good.
to focus on STEM education.
That's a great word. I'm hearing Dan's ears burn because he has a great heart for business in Mexico and kind of like a broader Somos Unidos message going on there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great insight. And then prior to that, the more scientists and engineers. Speaking as an English major, I would agree. We're also going to also need those humanitarians and folks like that to help those folks communicate. But
Yep.
Absolutely. There's great questions here. I might not be able to get to all of them because we want to respect everybody's time, including yours. But here's a couple more.
Okay.
This one comes from Kyle. What level of centralized leadership and management do we need versus efforts spread across counties, localized efforts as it relates to making these bold moves? Again, you've been around for a few cycles of different things, and what would your guidance to be to specific organizations, to the state, as to how it should come together right now?
Wow, that's a great question. And Kyle, we've had many discussions about, what needs to happen in New Mexico. But, I think we're maybe at that tipping point where we have to think differently. We have to plan differently. I think our private sector has always maybe taken a back seat to the public sector. We've maybe relied on the public sector too much, especially in the area of economic development planning to direct us, whereas I'm not so sure that in the next normal, it's not going to be the entrepreneurs, innovators, and the people that can see kind of on the horizon what's coming next that needs to craft a new business strategy and development strategy. So I would encourage everybody on this call to realize that your voice is going to be really important in what this next normal looks like for our state. They need to hear from you. They hear from, I'm sure every small business person has contacted their state legislator about reopening, but we really need as a state to make some strategic investments in our university system, our community colleges, in the workforce training area, engineering, but we also need to incentivize the entrepreneurs and the innovators to build their business here, to feel that they can find the capital and the venture capital to invest their time and dreams in resetting our economy. So it just can't be a conversation that gets developed about tweaking the status quo to create the next normal, because that's not going to work. And, I see Paula Getz on the line. I'm just real quickly, Paula's got a fabulous idea called Off-Ramp that really engages a retirement community who might be coming to New Mexico. And I think they'll be coming to New Mexico for a lot of the same reasons that international and domestic companies might be coming to New Mexico, because of our lack of density and our quality of life. So Paula, I encourage you to check out her efforts as well. So there's, I just think that we need to let our voice be heard in what this next business plan looks like for our state, and not fall back on, we've always got this safety net in government spending and a safety net in natural resources like oil and gas that's going to pull us out, because they're just not going to have the same economic impact in the future moving forward. And it's up to us to change that direction and build a robust private sector.
Fantastic. Bill's got a great question. Mathis, you got a great question. Somebody else asked, how long are these lessons learned through COVID going to stick? I don't know, but hopefully long enough for us to create some really valuable companies. I think. With the time remaining, I'd like to do one more little experiment here in the sense of not just hearing from Dale, but making connections. A lot of great people on the call today. We're not going to do breakout rooms, but I'm going to ask for a couple things in exchange for the value that this conversation has given to you. One is Rick Shore, who presented last week on risk and risk frameworks, which, by the way, if you missed that, you should go check it out. We recorded that. This is what Dale presented today and had us thinking about is really the extreme positive frame of what is risk, which is always going to be with us. So, but the surveymonkey.com link, please click on it, have it in your browser, and fill out this survey so that I, Dan, Dale, our guests, can get some valuable feedback to help us improve. Dale's bringing this message anywhere he can, and we need it to be disseminated. So appreciate your feedback on how to do that better through that survey. Secondly, tell everybody else what you're doing. So in the everyone chat here, put your website and maybe your one-liner, what you're trying to do, so that other than the Zoom breakout rooms where you met maybe one or two other people, several things were mentioned. You know, I mentioned CHAPS, rerouted co-op. Dale mentioned Paula's off-ramp. There's some amazing brain power and doer power here on the call. And I'd love to hear that you learned about something, made a connection because of this. So the last 3 minutes, put in your website, or even if it's just a LinkedIn profile where people can connect with you, learn what you're doing. And on the other side, click a few of these links. I think in Zoom, we actually have to copy and paste. I know that's so arduous, but you can do it. Copy and paste, get a sense for what's going on, and make a connection today. And I'd love to do that with a few folks whose names I don't recognize. So really good stuff. And thank you to the whole crew that helps pull off the Stay Engaged series. Rick, helping us on the surveys and measure what matters here. Dan for the disc jockeying extraordinaire with the Zoomage. And today's guest, Dale, thank you so much for being here and sharing your insights.
I enjoyed it. It was great fun.
Little hand snapping action here.
Good.
All right. Dan, any other notes I'm missing here as people post in what they're up to so that we can make some connections?
Sure. Please note that this meeting has been recorded, so there's a video and an audio version, as well as the transcript from the chat. So please do get your elevator pitch and link into the chat in these last few minutes, so that way, if you want to have all these links and resources, you'll know where to find them and the names associated. All that, including some of the resources that Dale's going to send over, are going to be in a follow-up email. If you RSVP'd via Eventbrite, we will get that in there. If you followed up via the calendar, you know, some of the Activate NM companies on the call had an invite via a calendar link, I will send it to there. And if you came in through another method, feel free to just put that in the chat as well, and I will, like Willow just did, and I'll make sure that you get that follow-up email. Final note, you know, we will host all this up on the Activate website under the Startup Engage blog post that we did. So give me and Zoom a little bit of time to figure out our, you know, video processing, and then we will get that uploaded. TJ?
Rick should definitely, Rick, you should get with Paula, learn about off-ramp. I'm a slap on my own hand for not having connected you already. Last but not least, next Friday, we're having David King present on how to look at your financial models in the wake of COVID, but again, responsive, having a responsive framework for your financial modeling. He's been an amazing mentor on the finance side, where frankly, lots of visions meet poor execution in startup land. So really excited. He's also going to be talking specifically about unit economics and how to gauge the potential of your startup based on whether the money and the financials are going to work or not. So it's going to be a fantastic session. Good. Lots of pitches here going. Upcoming sessions. We've got Learn As You Grow LLC, the Business Bookshelf. We've got Rick Shore. We've got Off Ramp. We've got Michael Sleater, Willow, Ken's, Jomo.health. Awesome domain name, but lots that doesn't auto link. Deep dives recruiting for data science and IoT. We're extremely excited about those and amazing opportunities for those who want to upskill into very trending things. Becky's Canopy Digital Innovations, Little Lions Learn from Kara, Awesome Sauce, Albuquerque's maletherapist.com, the safety of my clients. Jason, thank you, Jason. Hopefully I read the URL right. All right, it's 12:01. Thanks, everybody. It's so good to see you. Happy Friday. Let's stay positive, stay engaged, and help build New Mexico. Thanks all.